Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. We are doing Hawkeye episode 4 Partners. Am I right?
Am I right?
Oh boy. Well,
I can anticipate your dreading of my review of this episode. But
no, I wasn't
okay.
anticipating anything. Let's just go through it. And we'll see.
We'll see if you're right.
I think I'm the only one that doesn't hate this episode, but I think that's because I've just surrendered to the show, not really.
That is really, really surprising given my stance on this. I didn't hate this episode as much as most people would have thought.
Right.
So,
no,
I think given a lot of my criticisms of a certain holiday during this setting of what this is, this episode surprised me. And I think once we get to that scene, you'll hear it from me.
Okay.
And it'll be a shock. It'll be good.
All right. So it starts where the last episode ended, and Eleanor, Jack sit Kate and Clint down, and I guess the nice part of this scene is Clint is being very dismissive and like, no, you're not chill. No, you're not this. But then he does have to admit we are working together. And the smile on Kate's face is a very nice, so just a nice moment. It's a win for her. And I think this episode is a lot of reading Kate's face and not listening to what she's saying. But I thought that was a nice way to start off the episode of just her really being like, well, he admitted it, we're working together. And Clint catches where the Ronin sword is. He's able to get it. I'm sorry for ruining the elevator scene, but he's able to get it, but not before Eleanor talks to him. And I feel like very rudely was like, listen, you got to drop this. And she's not a superhero. And Clint's like, yeah, but she's trained, and she goes, well, Natasha was trained and that didn't help her. What a rude thing to say to somebody.
I know, right?
She followed it up with the right thing to say, or the right way to frame it.
Yes.
But I was just like, why did you do that? Like, I understand they're trying to be like, she could be the bad guy. But I was just like, as a human being, why did you do that? Not as a character in a TV show. I feel like that was them kind of not hiding the writing of it. That felt like a written moment.
Right. It was very, very much a written moment. It didn't feel natural to me.
Because she showed that she knew how to frame it in a human way of, my fear is that your friend who died was way better trained and had way more experience than my daughter. And even she passed away. So if you could do me a favor and not encourage my daughter, that would be great.
And I think it would be very, very different. And maybe I'm not reading the subtlety of Vera Farmiga. I can't pronounce her. Yeah, I can't pronounce her name.
Neither can I.
That's a trend on this show. I can't. I don't know too much of her work, so I can't tell if she's doing something.
I think she's
reactionary
a good actor
with her face.
I think she's a good actor who is in the show. As I said, I don't know what the show is getting at, so I think that's harder for directors to help guide a scene. I think that's harder for actors to anchor themselves in something. And then sometimes you just gotta forfeit and be like, well, this is what's written, this is what I'm saying. And then she can, I think, because I could be wrong. Maybe they all know what they're doing, and then at the end of the season, I'll look like an idiot. But it just feels like this show is, well, here's what happened in the comics, and then here's the kind of a story we're doing.
Yeah, it's
as opposed to just like here's our strong take on these characters and what we want to do with them.
I agree. I think this is one of the strongest episodes for Hawkeye. I feel like if the Disney trend that you identified was these are deep dives into the character, understanding them, their psyche, their universe, the things that they're struggling with, and telling real life stories. This is the first episode I could say that has been true. Your theory has been true within this series, because this is the first episode I'm like, I now feel like I know so much more about Hawkeye.
Well, I certainly know.
I have so many more questions.
Better. Yeah. I have a better feeling about his marriage. That's certain.
Yeah, I have questions. I don't have a better feeling. I'm like,
well, I didn't mean understanding. I just meant feeling. Like I'm just like, like I'm more interested in this now.
I see. Yeah. I'm more invested. I see.
That is a better way for me to frame it. I'm more invested in the marriage. But yeah, so basically right after that encounter with Eleanor, where she's kind of like, drop it. Mm-hmm. And again, why I say it seems like writing is that it's supposed to remind you that she is the villain, or could maybe not confirm that she's the villain, but like, hey, don't be so trusting of her because she said this first and then backpedaled. Whereas I'm like, I feel like we're watching a show, so I can just remember other things she's done.
Yes.
I don't need you to like in that moment remind me like, hey, don't trust her, because even after he leaves, she makes a call and you're like, yeah, like she's probably up to something.
Well, if anyone is trusting her at this point in time, I got a bridge to sell you. It's
so this is what I mean. Like that, it just felt like, wow, they really needed to write that in to like hold your hand,
because it wasn't successfully done. And I like the way you described it, that it was a written in moment, not an acted moment. Because when you have Jonathan Majors doing He Who Remains and doing those tonal shifts so successfully, but the dialogue remains like it's not threatening, but it is because of how he's delivering it. It's totally different. Versus here, I don't get that. What I get is concern followed up by a weak ass threat. And I'm like, that is pathetic. It's really bad. You can see that in that whole interaction, he doesn't even really want to work with her. And it's so weird how she, like, the dialogue goes like, hey, do you have kids? I'm gonna assume you do. And I'm almost like, is that a privileged, entitled, rich person?
I saw other people take exception with that, but that makes sense to me. As a parent, you can notice when someone cares about a kid the way you do your kids. That was me.
Yeah, I have nothing to speak to on that.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's her reading the situation. That does feel like character. That feels like, I know how to read people. If you have kids, why did I even ask? The way you're taking on my kid, obviously you had kids or have kids because you're trying to foster that type of relationship. That to me, like, I didn't think of that as like, well, why did she say that? Or like, what does she know? Or did she have extra information? Like, she might have all of that, but as a parent, I can see her being like, obviously you have kids, or you feel some way about that. Like even if you don't have kids, her point stands. Like, you should care about what this would mean to me as a parent to lose my kid. I don't think that's as like mysterious or Machiavellian as people are taking it. That's just like recognizing like, you're obviously trying to take a father role here. You can be as dismissive as you want, but you are working with my kid.
Yes,
I can see in you that you have parenting tendencies.
Yep.
So
that's fair. I can understand that. Yeah. I can understand a bit better.
I don't, that part of that's what I'm saying. Like, the show's not poorly written. It's just in that
I think certain characters are, though, but that's a different story.
Yeah, but I think I will always come back to that's because they don't really seem to have a grounding like theme or idea.
Yeah, they're like, this character is playing this role and it's not grounded in anything. That's why it's hard to. It's at this point, knowing these characters, they're like, Hawkeye would do that based on all the evidence that we have. Versus now we're being like, would she do that based on 2 episodes where there's like a few scenes of her and it's like being sus? I feel you're right. The evidence against is so difficult sometimes.
Yeah, we've really spent way too much time on this, but yeah,
fair. But he makes off with the sword. That's the important part.
He gets the sword. He tells Laura, "Hey, can you look up Sloan Limited?"
Yes.
Next scene is Laura calling Clint and that's where I thought this was very interesting because she was able to speak in code to tell him the information so that
I don't think
again,
German's a code.
no, she was like, hey, my friend said that his boss is that, and he was able to
I
be
see.
like, oh, okay, so the tracksuit mafia does work for Sloan or whatever, like that.
Oh,
She was
okay.
able, and she's like, and his boss Jack doesn't give him time off. She's like, oh, okay, so he is the CEO. That's the code, not the German part. I know that everyone jumps to German, but there is a bunch of information that comes before the German that was like, oh, that was a really nice back and forth of here's some code, and then we get to hear Hawkeye uncode it.
Gotcha. Okay, so just cryptic talk in front of the kids, kind of thing.
Yeah,
okay. I that you're right. That relationship has gotten so much more intriguing. There's obviously like rumors out there or theories that are like, oh, she's a shield agent, or she used to be Mockingbird, or she used to be or she might be a Skrull, or like anything like that. And I'm like, it's all a possibility at this point.
Yeah, I see the new Rockstar stuff, and I'm just like, oh, I will never not roll my eyes at Skrull, not because I don't think it's coming, or obviously they're doing a Secret Invasion show, but like I just don't like body swapping stuff. Like
I've heard you speak on that on
so
on
like
occasion
anytime
before.
someone's like, well, baby, it's because of Skrulls, I'm like, oh brother. Not because I'm like, oh, you're reaching. It's just because I'm like, oh, that would turn me right off. Like,
I agree. There are a lot of body swapping moments where I'm like, that felt like just a cheap shock moment to give us, and it just didn't feel like it was an earned thing. It was just like, which of these characters will have a good shock value, but not defer the narrative of the entire show, kind of deal. It's like, who's the third fiddle that we can turn into?
Like, I was fine with just like some random agent being a Skrull at the end of WandaVision. Like that didn't like change anything. It's just like, oh, okay, they're here, they're operating amongst us. But like, I wasn't like, whatever. The point is, I know it's coming, but it still makes my eyes roll. But the point of
sorry about Skrulls real quick. I had this one thought. I'm like, it'd be really cool if Phil Coulson turned out to be a Skrull, so that the way Phil Coulson, even though he did die, it could be like, okay, this is the Skrulls' default setting because he helped them out so much on that ship that they all love and respect him, and they can all emulate him.
That would be such a
it'd be stupid
of Agents of Shield, because of how much work they put into that, and how much work they put into his death, and how come he came back, and what happened when he came back. I just feel like sure they could do that, but like to be like, now it's just a Skrull, it would be like, all right, great.
We're probably gonna get people like Jimmy Woo, or like
maybe
like those kind of people eventually, but like right now it is what it is. I mean, Jimmy Woo would make a good Skrull, though.
Let's move on to the show. We could get through it and then talk more about Skrulls. But as you were saying, the point of this scene is to show Laura's interest in getting that Rolex back.
Yes, and her level of knowledge about everything. Like, so far we know that she knows everything that he did as Ronin. Like every single thing,
right? So he was like, "Oh, I thought that it wouldn't be. I thought the Rolex was gone, and that specific Rolex that they're thinking of was gone." She's like, "Yeah, I thought that about your fancy suit as well." Like, which is what we probably, I think we said that in the first episode. Like, obviously, she knows he's Ronin. Probably the kids know, or no, we knew the kids didn't, because they kept calling it the ninja.
Yes, but
I think we assumed Laura would know about it, and she confirmed, she knows about Ronin.
Yeah, absolutely, she knows. And it's I don't know if this is one of the most supportive marriages in the superhero universe ever, or this is like they used to be
certainly the most
together.
It's the longest running supportive marriage, that's for sure.
Yes.
It is.
100%.
There's no qualifier. It just is. It's the longest running, most supportive marriage, clearly.
And the fact that we get to see more of more of Laura. Linda Cardellini is her name. Cardellini. I love that actress. I think she's been in so many things that I love. So I love the fact that we could possibly be seeing more of her. So I'm looking forward to that.
Down the line.
Down the line.
I feel
not
like
now.
They've pretty much committed to, like, she'll just be making phone calls in this show.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that for now.
Yeah, no, but I think you're right. Down the line,
Yeah.
we'll see more about it.
Yeah.
More of her.
Maybe some
Laura.
secret invasion. I don't know, but we'll
Could
see.
be.
Yep.
And then here comes another scene I think people didn't like. I've heard new rock stars, but I think people on the Ringiverse as well seem to think this is weird. And it's when Kate is with her mom and she tries to talk about Jack, but then Jack comes back in the room and he's like, "Oh, are we talking about dancing?" And then he dances with the mom, and everyone's like, "Why does she just like him now?" And I was like, I don't think she likes him. I think she likes the effect she's having that Jack has on her mom, or even just the idea that her mom is smiling and happy now. I think that is what she's reacting to. Again, reading her face. It's and if we are talking about the show, this episode being about partners, she derives happiness from working with Hawkeye. That's what makes her happy. And she sees that her mom is happy and her mom has a partner. I think that's the long and short of it. I don't think she's like, "Oh, you know what? This guy is nice now because he doesn't know how to pronounce," or people keep saying pronounce, people that he doesn't know what the aphorisms are, and he uses them incorrectly. But like, no, she's not charmed by him. She's just happy for her mother.
I agree. I 100% agree. When people are like, "Oh, now she likes him now," I'm like, I don't think there's any evidence of that. I don't think they're going out to lunch together. I don't think they're doing like, "Oh, let's do a shopping trip together or plan a surprise birthday for your mom." Like, they're not doing that kind of shit.
She's all just that like, you know what? Right now, I'm happy. My mom is happy.
Yeah. Her words were literally, "I've never seen you like this." That's it.
She was taken aback by that.
Exactly. It was just a moment, a disarming, vulnerable moment that her mom had in front of her that she probably hadn't seen. My assumption here is that the appearance of Jack is probably the first partner that she's brought home to meet Kate since the death. And that's why it's a shock. And maybe I'm just reading into it. But then for Kate, because I was looking into that scene thinking like, is that what other people are coming up, like deriving out of this? Because I think she's just genuinely happy for her mom in that moment. You know what I mean?
And I don't think it's like a lasting. It's not like she's like, "Well, all is forgiven," because it's just like that's really like she can feel bad about it 1 second later, be like, "Well, I'm gonna have to ruin that because Jack's a bad guy," but she still can just be like, "Wow, my mom is genuinely happy right now."
Yeah, but also like let's not forget that this whole relationship just seems to be acted in front of her. Like it just seems like you two are either staging things or doing, like, it just seems weird. Like the whole, I don't know, but
I think it's weird because of where we are in the season. It's almost done, so obviously the other shoe has to drop. I don't think that if this were a 10 episode show, even, or if we knew like, oh, this is like Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, where we're going to get many seasons of this, that I would say this specifically looks staged. It just feels that way because we know this has to end on episode 6.
That's true.
Because I think that
it's a good point.
The way Jack is portrayed, he could just be some guy that's like, he could be doing something creepy, but he also could just be like, "I'm having fun with Eleanor," and like, I'm not going to stop having fun just because her daughter is here and doesn't like me. I'm just having fun with my girlfriend.
Yep.
That part of it is, I understand why people are saying that, but I also think that doesn't come through in specifically what I'm watching. It just comes through because I know that this will end very quickly. And so something needs to happen. And then, retroactively, that will all feel like they were staging it. But again, even at that point, I don't know how much of that will actually play into that other shoe dropping, other than, he was a bad guy. Yeah, she was a bad guy. And I don't even know if they'll reference this stuff in that reveal, or that this was all part of their ploy.
Yeah, because I'm getting like so many different wild theories going on right now in my head about like, okay, I think Jack and the mother are getting married so that if they get caught for illegal activities which are clearly engaged in with the Sloan Shell Corporation kind of situation, then they can't testify against each other. I'm like, are they doing that angle where it's like, oh, if we get like where Skylar gets on board with Walter in Breaking Bad, it's like, well, I can't testify you if I'm your wife. And I'm like, cool. That's a technicality that works, I guess. Is that what they're trying to do here? Or like, that's what I'm thinking. Or is it just like a really inconsistently written character?
I think I don't know that it's inconsistently written. I think they don't have enough time to explore what it is they're doing. But
true,
two people having a good time together around the holidays doesn't feel inconsistent to me.
To me, it does. But that's for personal reasons.
Well, you're not. Yeah, you don't like the holidays.
I am the Grinch.
But you understand that people have a good time around.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then moving on to the next scene.
Yeah. So then
where we're actually having the
not
holiday
moving
scene.
on. Basically, what happens is they're laughing at him because he doesn't know that it's not absence makes the heart grow fonder, and he's like, well, being laughed at by family is better than being alone on the holidays, so I'll take it. Which obviously then speaks to Kate, who knows that Clint is alone in her aunt's apartment. And then yes, we move on to the next scene, which is her hanging out with Hawkeye.
Having a bonding montage, party montage, which is great. But one thing before we leave that last scene, it's important to know that Jack and Hawkeye didn't appear to have any recollection or knowledge or recognition of each other at all.
I don't think it's important to note unless someone was looking for this to be exactly like comic accurate.
Exactly. And that's why I'm pointing out. I don't know how our viewer base has changed. I just wanted to point out that one factual thing. That's all.
Yeah. I nothing about the show. I don't know why everyone was like, he hasn't turned yet. So maybe we'll see. Because like she's mentioned Jack a bunch of times. The fact that never meant anything to him already let me know they don't have any pre-existing knowledge of each other. Yep. Like in the comics, his name is Jacques, not Jack. For Hawkeye to be like, well, that's Jack. She didn't say Jacques, so I don't know. Maybe it is a different person. I'd be like, all right, that's not how you would think about your mentor. Or if he was her mentor, you would know his tricks or whatever. Right. So someone describing him, you'd be like, oh, that sounds like Jacques or Jack. Yeah. So I was already like, they're not using that. They're just using names in the show. It's the same way they're just using Kazi or Grills. No one is like
who they are.
I shouldn't say no one. Kate is comic accurate. Clint is MCU accurate. He's certainly not comic accurate.
That's and incredibly accurate for you to say that.
Yeah, and then the rest of these characters, as I said, like Eleanor is dead in quotation marks in the comics, so that's not comic accurate. Like I understand what they're doing is in like here are some names that might sound comforting to you because they're familiar, but they are doing different things with them. So anyone who's like basing this off of what happens in the comics might be a bit disappointed, I would say. But I was never looking for it to be like, oh, they know each other. The age didn't really seem to work for me because I don't know that Jeremy Renner is that much younger than Tony Dalton. So yeah, I was just like, I don't think they know each other. And that cliffhanger for me was more like, hey, like what's going to happen next now at the front, and not like, ooh, do they know each other?
Right. That's fair. Okay.
But yeah, I think
it's important because in the comics it was he is one of the trainers of Hawkeye, but that's all I bring it up for. It's just those that want to be like, they didn't know this about that. I'm like, nope, don't tweet that.
No, we already said that at the beginning.
Yep.
We know. I think, the important thing about these shows is you actually have to remember what happened in other episodes. You can't be living episode to episode with these things. Yeah. So everything that happened up until that point led me to believe they didn't have any previous knowledge of each other.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say really quickly to this and all fan bases, I'm just at the point where I find it more refreshing and more comforting for people to take their spins on stuff and put it into a movie rather than just, we're doing this. And I'm like, as much fun as that is, sometimes it's more fun to look at the newer things inspired by the older things. I personally think that so this is turning into a lot of fun. And especially this one scene this bonding scene, this Christmas scene, very, very overtly Christmas scene, I didn't hate it.
Cool.
I thought, removing the theme of Christmas aside, I thought this was a very successful bonding scene between the both of them, especially after Hawkeye for a long time was saying, like, we're not partners, we're not partners, we're not partners. And they're like strategizing together, they're planning together, they're having drinks and everything like that together. And it's just like, this is great to watch. It's like you say, it's always fun to watch people have fun on screen, and this is a
like what
very
yeah.
I love watching Haley Steinfeld in this. She's so much fun in this whole scene. She's adorable, she's cute, she's not insightful because she keeps pressing, but this is one of those things with Kate. It's like, oh yeah, I think this is a generational comment. It's like, you guys don't know when to stop or something like that. You don't know boundaries, or you don't know when to, a boomer is trying to communicate something to you that's like, hey, this is my way of saying boundaries and back off. Don't press it anymore. But it was a great scene. I like this scene a lot.
I think so yeah, in the scene, Clint is like, Jack is the CEO of Sloan, so that's not a good thing. And I've heard people be like, oh, she didn't know how to, as an actress, how to process that. I think she made a choice. She made the choice of, yes, that's true, but also I'm here to cheer you up. So let me prioritize that over up top dealing with this issue that we have. Because as you said, eventually they do start working on what they're going to do about it. But she was like, okay, yep, that's true. And I'm here to cheer you up. So let's focus on that right now. I think she just had different priorities in that moment. I don't think she was dismissive. She gets to it. They start like, I like that part. It's like, is that dry erase marker? It's just permanent marker on the glass. It was really fun. So yeah, that's nice. He teaches her the trick that in the comics his brother teaches him with the coin. Or not even coin. This is an ornament, but obviously in the comics it's a coin that he can shoot and use as a deadly weapon, or in this show, a concussive weapon at the very least. And then they talk about the best shot. And yeah,
things got real.
It obviously sets up what happens later, but if you've watched Black Widow, it seems to be like confirming the idea that like he was sent to kill her. I know they've talked about it as well, but like, yeah, he was sent to kill her, and he noticed her heart wasn't in the bad thing she was doing. He sensed she might want an out, so he trusted his gut on that feeling, and it worked out because, as he said, Natasha was one of the best of us, and as we saw in Endgame, she was the one leading the charge, like after everyone kind of like fell by the wayside. The blip, and it was her. He saved, in that moment, he saved the person that like really led the charge to making sure everything got back to the way it needed to be.
Because he obviously, it's in his name, Ronin. It means lost warrior, samurai without a cause, right? So he had no cause, had no family to fight for, literally and figuratively. And then Black Widow, figurative family, pulls him back, and because you're right, she's the one holding the meetings, and as like, well, what are we going to do about that? And Okoye is like, it's an underground earthquake. We handle it by doing nothing. Like, you can't handle that. Like, what are you gonna do? So, like, that's her sense of, and for someone that's so put together all the time, for her to ask such a stupid question, it just shows you how distraught she is in that Endgame moment, and how much family meant to her, and how much like she was almost done. You know what I mean? Such great acting, and then for Clint to have so many reminders of Natasha this whole series, it's heartbreaking. It really is.
And then the heartbreak continues as they watch It's a Beautiful Life, and he sees his Jimmy Stewart, I don't remember the guy's name, but Jimmy Stewart's kids come back to him at the end of the movie, which again, some good face acting by Kate. She notices that as well, and the toll that takes on him. That also leads her to be like, so I guess your family blipped. And he was like, yep. And as we figured, she already knew he was Ronin. That's why I didn't really like the charade she was playing in the last episode. But like, she builds up the courage to just flat out ask him.
Yep, can't deny it now.
Yeah, and he says. I mean, I don't know if he says specifically yes, but yes, it is a tacit agreement, like a confession. Yeah, that's how I dealt with it. That's how I dealt with it.
Yeah, he doesn't deny. He goes straight into his like, we all dealt with a blip in our own ways, and he just took time crime bosses the entire time. That was how his therapy was.
And then she tries to make him feel better about being Ronin. As I said, I already feel like that chapter. Not that it can't still be a specter and a thing, but I'm just like,
it doesn't.
I don't know that we're gonna get much more out of his guilt about being Ronin.
We can't at this point. I mean, I hope that we can't, because at this point it's just helping another white guy through his selfish decision to do a murderous rampage.
Like my other thing is, I think this is what gets confusing for fans of comic book movies is like, I understand he was killing humans instead of aliens, but he was a killer. It's not like he didn't have that as a function. As he said, I'm just a weapon. I just got aimed in the right direction. But like, he's a killer. So like, if there's no more aliens to kill that are hurting or that are damaging the earth,
and he's got no family to pull him away from that.
No, but what I'm saying is, sure, he lost his family, he got angry, but like, I don't understand people having that hard of a time understanding that what he was doing was killing to protect the earth before he became Ronin. So if there's no more aliens to kill that are hurting the earth, why wouldn't you just assume he would start doing it to drug dealers and people that are hurting the earth?
Yeah, there's no there was no agency to steer him towards like, oh, I want you to take this target out or this target. He's like, I was just aimed in the right directions, right?
Yeah, but what I guess what I'm saying is, it for me, there's not like, if you're a killer, you're a killer. So like, everyone that's like, oh, he needs to pay for the. It's like, well, why are you okay with him killing these people that are causing danger? These beings that are causing danger, but not these humans. Like, I think the show shows like maybe he took out some innocent people, but like innocent to the extent that you like their daughter, who also is continuing on the tradition of hurting people. And this isn't me saying, oh, it's okay to be a killer. I'm saying I don't get how you're okay with picking and choosing when he can kill.
Yeah, the ethical morality here is very, very interesting when people are discussing this, because they're like,
my inability to get on board with this whole he needs to pay is like, I think he did, and also I don't understand what the difference is in people's minds.
Yeah,
it becomes more splitting hairs to me than anything else.
I always find that people are, if they're on the side that's being defended, then they will have no qualms about how ugly anything is to be defended, right? It's like, you killed me, or you killed a whole bunch of people to defend this one princess. You're a hero. Versus that dude just fucking slaughtered like 100 people. And
that saved people. But that's something like, in each instance that we're talking about with Clint Barton as Hawkeye or Ronin, he's still saving people. It's just people seem to have this weird thing of like, but those were humans, and it's like, it seems to me like they were just the next on the list of people doing harm. I will push back on that. I disagree with that. It's not the next on the list, because we have no confirmation whether or not that was his specific task, whether or not he was specifically hired to take out drug lords. So you're worried about
stuff,
who
right?
hired him. I'm saying what the end result is death. That's the end result. It doesn't matter who got hired and why they got hired. The point is, he was always going to be a murderer.
Yes, but my point is, with people that hire him or aim towards that direction, there's more of a process that goes in. There's more thought, versus what he was doing was basically like, cool, you're a drug lord, you're automatically.
I don't know what you mean. There's no example of him being hired, because he was on the team that didn't sign the Sokovia Acts, meaning he never really was. I'm talking about when we see him in the movies, not his past as a shield. What I'm talking about is, let me finish the thought though.
Well, sure.
So what I'm saying is he didn't ever in the movies go by like, I got hired to do this. He was always, I'm working with the Avengers, I'm going to take out the bad guys. And it wasn't non-lethal moves. So what I'm saying is, as an Avenger, he still keeps that, and he's angry. So maybe people feel weird about his anger while he's doing it, but he's still doing the same thing.
Yes.
Taking out the people he thinks are the bad guys. That's what he always was doing.
Yeah, and that's what I'm pointing out. I'm pointing out that the side that he's on is important to the perception, but also that the judgment here is that some sort of thought due process was being put into play when he was killing out while he was a shield agent, and we know he was killing people, all that kind of stuff. He says it, so we can conclude that, okay, you were a weapon aimed, so you were never allowed. And we know corporate world, especially corporate military kind of private corporations, you don't kill a target without having a billion different levels of clearance. Okay. So with that being said, he was never the one that consciously decided that anyone was going to die. The decision was already made, and he was the person that needed to execute it. There's a difference between being a sniper and being a vigilante, right?
But what I'm saying is, sorry, I'll let you finish.
So in that sense, where he turned Ronin, Shield was down. Nick Fury, Maria Hill was dusted. We don't know what happened with Shield. We probably know that the only thing functioning at that point was any remaining military defense globally, as well as the Avengers. Like, it's probably secret intelligence operations probably wasn't there to exist, right? So that entire time, okay, and he says it, everyone dealt with the blap in their own way. I did this. It was a situation where it's like, nope, my family's gone, this is gone, I have no one to kill, so I'm just gonna go ahead and kill people. It's the idea that there's no thought, there's no clearance, that there's no due process of any kind that's disturbing to him and to the audience, I think, because that's right. The same but what thing I'm saying that is Chitauri came in for New York. That Chitauri came in and there was no due process. They came in to destroy. So in that sense, he's a hero. But in the regard where he went to destroy and kill without due process, or without people being like, yeah, that's a good idea, let's take out that Yakuza guy, without people agreeing with him, it became something completely different. And I do agree with his guilt there, but I don't know if there's anything that he can atone for. Like, there's, how do you make that up? You can't. You went on a murderous rampage for 5 years.
I think that's where we differ, is that I don't think there was ever, in terms of what we saw in the movies, due process. That's always what was set up. And in this episode, he sets up why he never worked on due process since we saw him. Boom. He was always saying, he said, I had a gut feeling, so I was aimed at her, and I was like, I don't think I should kill her. And then he just operated off that gut from that point on. If that is true in this episode, and people can understand the emotional impact of that, I don't understand the blind spot of he's continuing to go on his gut. And even if you're going off of Endgame, where people are worried about how he's killing people, no one's saying he's killing people that are innocent.
But some people are. Echo would disagree with you.
Right. Echo would disagree with you, but she's still part of an organization that is doing harm. Her dad was part of an organization. We like her dad. We like Echo. That is, again, what I talk about splitting hairs. There wasn't innocent people in the tracksuit mafia. That's
right.
You can't.
Her dad's not completely
like
innocent.
The Nazi that's like, oh, well, you know,
you're right.
How I make a living. Sorry. Like, you can like him as an individual, but look what he is a part of.
No, you're right. You're completely right about that. And it's so the idea that, like, I guess Echo's gripe is that, like, hey, I could have visited him in jail, like, but Ronan chose to kill him instead. It's that. Yeah.
So I understand that we like someone he killed, so that's upsetting. But what I'm saying is, he was always a killer, and he's already set the precedent of, from before you saw me in these movies, I was always operating off of my gut.
Yes.
And so there was never due process. We never saw him work with due process. In fact, he rejected the due process.
I think that's a good point that you bring up, since ever since he didn't take the shot with Natasha, that he started operating on his own. And he is a very rogue agent in many regards. We see that in the Avengers. We see him constantly quitting. He's like, oh, I do this. He comes back whenever he wants. He not really is the biggest team player out there, right? Except for Team Barton, which is his own family.
Right, to protect his family.
Yeah. Exactly. Everything you're saying to me actually makes a lot of sense. But you're right. I do not get where people are getting this malleable morality from. It's a very, very odd thing. But I want them to just acknowledge the fact that if you're on the team that's being defended, it's more than likely you will stomach anything to be defended by people. So I mean, that's a heavy bias.
That I agree with.
Yeah,
that I agree with. That obviously, as people keep saying throughout this show, thanks for saving the world. You're going to be like, yeah, you did a great thing. People, I just don't get why you don't, not you as Ben, why people who are saying this don't see that in his mind, a drug cartel is the same as the Chitauri in terms of there's no more Chitauri to come. So what's the next thing that is destroying the earth or destroying where people are?
Yeah, because I mean, for someone that's been hired to kill and he's killed so much, and he's dealt with grief so much, like, because he says, like, at some point in this series, I forget when, but he's like, I forget some of it, like, we're in the business of grief or something like that. I think it's this, loss management. I think it's this episode.
That was last episode.
Last episode. Yeah, but I'm like, yeah, he's entirely right about that. You have to have such a thick skin, and your morality or whatever it might be at that time is probably so perverted just by the sheer nature of how many lives you've taken, right?
Yeah.
You value life probably very differently.
As I said, killing isn't the answer. Like, I'm not like, I just think that, like, it is weird to all of a sudden be like, we need to, like, dig into him paying for the killing, because that's kind of just what he was always doing in terms of what we have seen in the movies. Despite what he talks about, we've only ever seen him be a killer, and this show sometimes shows him doing non-lethal things, but I think that's maybe to prove their point for the whole he needs to pay for being Ronin, because maybe that's what this show is about. I don't know.
I've always brought that up as a possibility. I still hold on to that idea.
Yeah, you said that it's about accountability and stuff, and I agree. That's one thing I agree with you. It's just maybe not the best selection of characters outside of Hawkeye or Clint Barton to explore that.
I would agree with that, because I don't think there's a lot of accountability on Kate's part, except for shooting down the bell tower.
Yeah, and we talked about that last episode, but
that's pretty weak to me.
Yes, I agree. Anyway, so then they basically decide she has to go retrieve the trick arrows because there's no more left. They have a funny thing about boomerang arrows. I will acknowledge that, but I feel like we should move on. She has to go get them from the LARPers.
Oh God, yep.
Yeah, and then Clint meets with Kazi to tell him that, look, I understand that you've got Maya's ear, so just
I like that scene a lot. That seems great.
I like the scene. It is conflicting with my vision of the point of calling that character Kazi, but I've let that go. That, as I said up top, I've just surrendered to this show is doing what it wants to do.
Yeah.
And it's not even like I'm like mad, like the way people were somehow mad. But I mean, I will point out, people don't seem to have a problem with how Kazi's used in this, but seem to have such a huge problem with how Taskmaster was used. I will point that out, but somehow
that is so great. I love that. Oh,
like somehow
please tell me that's gonna be one of the sound bits that you put up on Instagram. I love it. That is great.
But like, yeah, somehow Taskmaster, who still pretty much served the function of can match your thing. Granted, I don't know a lot about Taskmaster, but I don't think that he was this big character that everyone knew outside of people who read the comics regularly. And I'm talking about people who read the comics regularly, thinking this Kazi representation is perfectly fine because he's hot. But I'm like, for me, I just feel like that's not Kazi. Like, Kazi is the guy that you're afraid of. He comes in and you're like, oh fuck, someone's gonna die. Not the guy that like Clint can get the drop on just by hiding in the back of his truck.
Yeah,
like that's not Kazi. But again, I'm not like, that doesn't make the show bad. I just would like I just find it interesting that certain properties get held to a different standard. But you know what?
Certain properties or certain,
I should say Marvel. Within Marvel, like, you know,
I see what
Falcon
you're
and
saying.
Winter Soldier is bad because everyone knows that COVID
Right.
stopped them from doing what they needed to do.
The virus subplot.
Yeah,
that they
Black
had.
Widow's bad because Taskmaster wasn't done properly. Like, okay, so the woman-led thing is bad. The black hero-led thing is bad. Hawkeye, what a great show. Love it. And Kazi's so hot.
I can't help but notice the exact same pattern, and it's so frustrating for me. So incredibly frustrating. I'm like, Loki was good, and I'm like, okay.
I mean, it was better than this, but
it was better than this. No, but what I'm saying that, and I wish we had the facial reactions here, but like, because my eyebrows went up. It was like Loki was good, and you're like sus. You're like, okay, what did you like about it? And they're like, I like this. Okay, so
like
you they're like, oh, and then
multiverse
translated to me. I'm like, oh, you like Easter eggs.
Mm-hmm.
You like Easter eggs and being not inconvenienced with too heavy of a subject matter. Okay, I see what's happening here. Yeah, I okay, and he's white. Okay, I see what's happening.
So yeah, basically Clint is like, because I guess Kazi was obviously like, why do I care? And then he just reminds him, like, you know, Uncle's not going to appreciate all of this, right? Like, you, for that alone, don't do it because I'm telling you, do it because you know that you're gonna run into Uncle at some point. Yeah, and that's going to be an issue for you. Yeah. And so that kind of ends again with Kazi looking like an idiot and never like he'd ever looked in the comics, which I don't mean is bad. I just wanted like to point out that it is interesting that such a important character in that comic run was reduced to this. But maybe, you know what? Maybe in 5 and 6 he really turns it on. So I can't say anything.
Apparently, that's official. What they're saying is that 5 is a game changer. But I mean, I feel like they could say that about every. Yeah, I feel like they could say that about a lot right now. But I'm like, so you're gonna start to take the show somewhere where you're gonna start to tie off some of these knots. Ends is what is happening. We're gonna revisit that dead body.
What people mean is in a few episodes, cameo is gonna happen, and people be like, "Whoa, that's cool."
That's gonna be rough. I'm like, there's been a dead body since episode 2, and no questions. I forgot about that. Yeah. That bothers me so much. I'm like, okay, Kate's not being suspicious about this. No one's being suspicious. Like, I don't need to see a funeral, but like, he doesn't have any signs of visible grief.
Or even the cop that called her to be like, "Can you come in?" Who is, again, in the comic run, a big, that's a big thing. She's got,
isn't she also a hero? Like, they made a Easter egg reference to the bag, right? The bombshell.
A bombshell, yeah.
Well, she's like, that's my bag. My wife made it for me. Oh, okay.
Her daughter is a hero with Miles Morales and Ms. Marvel and stuff like that. But,
Miles,
yeah. So yeah,
but that's
the scene I was going to talk about. But that's the scene I was going to talk about. That Kate goes to the LARPers and is like, "Hey, can you do some mild, good old fashioned evidence tampering?" And they're like, "Yep, just make it worth our while." No, which I didn't.
And costumes.
I didn't understand what they wanted. Well, that's the thing. That scene ends with me thinking, "Oh, they already established their terms," but they just were over at the house and then decided what the terms were there. So it's like, oh, that's a long time to go without, because she got the arrows without ever actually stating what her terms were for getting the arrows.
Yeah. Why do people make like deals without knowing what the terms are? Like, that's stupid. Like,
well, the terms are they get material for. Like, yeah, I'll put my job on the line so I can get. This is what I meant about, like, if it's about the cost of being a hero, like, and I don't think cops are heroes, but if you go on the idea that cops are heroes, why would you shit on that? I mean, it plays into my feeling about cops, but I don't think that it works if it's like these first responders and this cop were willing to, this cop specifically was willing to put her job on the line without any like assurance that anything would happen. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll go tamper with evidence.
But it's not only job on the line. This is a black woman in the NYPD tampering with evidence. this is a situation where not only is she getting fired, she's getting jail time for that. Like shit
They'll
tons
make
of
an
jail
example
time.
of her. Yeah.
They will make an example of her because she's black. And I'm like, this is bullshit. And this is going to be so bad. Why did anyone write this character the way this did? This is clearly white privilege writing this. This is like not something.
Yeah, it's certainly
that
not
would be considered.
anyone who cares about what's going on there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
The one character
they
I
get
would
to
have
say
like,
she's black and she's a lesbian,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of representation. But then
It's
it was
like,
like, why are they
yay, but
making
I'm
terrible
like-
decisions?
but I'm like, that's a dumb idea. No, I don't think anyone would do that. That's not a white young cop, male.
Yeah. Well,
I can't see anyone doing that unless they are of that degree, because it's just like to your point about a lot of the similar reasons why I don't like cops. It's just like, okay, well, they'll, that don't like the blue line or the blue wall or something like that, right?
Blue line,
Is
yeah.
the blue line is what they call it. Like you don't cross that, like you don't turn on your own and all that kind of stuff. But it's especially true when there's a blue white line, because then it's just like, oh, there's another layer of like, you don't screw over your own race within this police case. It's fucking crazy. It's like, what the hell? This is
so they get outfits out of this, and then for some reason they also agree to make outfits for Hawkeye and Kate. I'm like, see, you got material, but you're also being put to work again,
and you've been contracted. And she's like, oh my god, maybe this could be my new thing. This maybe could be my new calling in life. I could make cosplay outfits for superheroes, and that would be my business, which is like honestly not a bad business idea, but it's like a really, really stupid trade. It's a stupid trade. Well, they don't have anything in it. They're not like, oh, let's get a selfie with Hawkeye and post it on an Instagram, or make Hawkeye an official LARPer and he'd have to come like once a year contractually. Nothing like that whatsoever. It's just like, we want materials for our costume, which is stupid.
It's again,
Not even
anytime the LARPers come up,
specialized.
I question what the point is, other than to make them look like goofs.
It's not even specialized armor. I would understand if they were like, you know what's really good and really lightweight for LARPing armor? Vibranium. That would have been like, oh, okay, these guys, that makes sense now. Okay, you want some vibranium for this.
All right, so Clint gets confirmation on the Rolex location. I'm speeding through this because we're now at like 18 minutes over the actual episode's runtime. So they get to the location, she breaks in. I will tell you this, I did not even understand what was happening with the flashing lights. Like, I know that it should have been obvious, like that they're in Echo's apartment, but for some reason and I've seen movies where they show the silent alarm for people who are deaf, and I was just like, I still was like, interesting. I don't know what's going on. All right. But yeah, she gets in there, she sees that Maya has information on Clint's kids and wife, and then I was like, oh, okay, they're in Maya's place. Oh, this is gonna be quite the fight. But we hear Clint fight someone outside, and there's a confusion over where Maya is. In particular, Maya's in her apartment. Yelena's on the rooftop with Clint. There is a fight. The important part of the fight for me, not for everybody, is when Kate goes off and they basically use the music from Vormir, and it's him seeing what happened again and having a bit of a, I don't know if it's panic, but it's cause for him to be like, all right. And then he makes the decision of like, I'm gonna cut her loose. So it's the opposite. Like, obviously in Endgame, he wants to pull Natasha up, and Natasha says, let me go. And in this one, he's like, I'm gonna drop her, and she's like, no, pull me up, pull me. I should say Kate is like, no, pull me up. Which is interesting because I feel like her getting up from that, again, the face acting showed her resolve of like, she didn't take it as like, oh, that hurts my feelings. She's like, fuck that, I'm going right back up there. Like, I'm not, this isn't gonna stop me. And she gets up there and does not take the shot on Yelena, which is obviously we see the future Hawkeye and the future Black Widow be created again in that moment. I know that some people were like saw that as that means she's not built to be a hero, but I guess they forgot the whole conversation of, seeing in somebody that they're not really committed to doing the bad things they're doing, and that they might want an out.
It's like foreshadowing doesn't exist to a lot of people.
Yeah, so I was like, obviously she made the same gut decision of like, obviously this woman is not here because she wants to kill us.
Yes.
Even like you can see, and I felt like that was also the whole Yelena shaking her head no. It was like, don't.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Yelena was trying to intimidate her, but I got the sense that it was kind of like, let's go. This is done.
I don't think it was about intimidation. I think it was just like what I got from it more was like, you're not ready for this, or if you try to go for me, I'm gonna have to go for you now.
Yeah, and then you will die.
Like, and then you will 100%.
But that's what I think is intimidation of like, like.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I think her shaking that was like, look,
you're not on my level. Like, you're not on my level. Yeah.
Like I spared you, so don't make me not have to spare you. And I think I don't think Kate backed down. I think Kate saw like, I think this is an instance where I could turn this around for this person as opposed to killing her.
Yeah.
And again, it's not guaranteed that she would have killed her if she took the shot, but I think the idea that she didn't take the shot showed that she was thinking about it.
Yeah, because Kate is they're playing this character up to be very naive, very innocent, and that is exactly what someone would do. Like she's not.
No, I don't think it's naive and innocent. I think that is her learning from Clint and being like,
right,
because we know as an audience that Yelena's not a bad guy, so that's showing that she has insight into that. That like this person she didn't do anything fatal during this fight, and even strapped her to something before she threw her off.
Right.
The roof. Like clearly she's not here to destroy. And I think so I don't think that was naive or innocent. I think that was her reading the situation.
Yeah. So I think the other thing that's interesting about this fight is that how weak the widow's bites were. And also
people said
like
that.
with
and I think that all plays into she's not there to kill anyone.
Well, that's what I mean. I feel like if she's not there to kill anyone, what is the alternative? Because to me, it looked like if she wanted to kill Clint, she probably would have at least
taken him out before she would have taken him out before the fight started.
Yes, I believe that would have been the case, right? Especially because he didn't know that there was a Black Widow assassin on his.
He was distracted, so she could have just taken him out
easily.
That was what her thing was.
So one thing I think right now, and this is my theory going into this, is I think Yelena knows that Val lied to her about like this Clint Barton is the person, he's the person that killed your sister and stuff like that, right? I feel like she's gonna go like, I need you to tell me what exactly happened to my sister, and like to try to get like I want to turn on Val so bad, but she couldn't because
the fight broke out and things like that. I think I agree with you. I think she wants to hear from him what happened.
Yeah, cool.
And I think that's just what I think. She wants to hear from him what happened, and she'll make her own decision.
Yeah, and and I think it needs to be in a case where he's hanging on for his life, so she can know that he's telling them the truth, or like at least be like, you're inches away from death, tell me the truth now, or something like that.
Sure, yeah,
maybe I don't know, but
the big thing that happens before the episode ends is he ends the partnership. But if cutting the rope wasn't enough, it was like, look, someone hired a Black Widow. This is clearly a big issue now.
Yeah,
like, what your mom said earlier is in my head more now. Like, and I know that when it comes down to it, I wasn't able to save my best friend. I'm probably not gonna be able to save you if it really comes down to it. And I know he did the thing in movies where you tell the dog like, go away, boy, no one wants you. Like, I think that's what he was doing. He's being extra mean so that she would just leave. Again, not directly from the comics, but a trope that happens in the Matt Fraction run of him pushing her away. And then they go off and do it again. But I shouldn't say again. However, in this situation, there's only 2 episodes left, so it seems like they're gonna just do it the once of he pushes her away, they go their separate ways, and then come back. But yeah, that's how the episode ends. Is he's kind of like, yeah, we're not partners. You are wrong.
Yeah, I don't like you. Go away. That is not true. He just doesn't want to lose her.
Yeah,
he likes her.
He doesn't need another death on his hands.
Yes, that's very much true. He's that's he's tried to retire a few times already, so he definitely doesn't want any more of this. So
yeah.
we'll
see how the next 2 episodes go. And I did hear episode 5 is a game changer.
Yeah,
but as we saw in Loki, the episode everyone liked wasn't my favorite. And
which is the remind me again? Which is the episode?
Remember the one where they like go in to see all the different Lokis or whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay. That was the hardest one for me to get my head around. But and then in WandaVision, we're like, oh, you watch what happens. And I'm like, yeah, she gets a fucking vehicle and she becomes Spectrum. But I feel like everyone was like waiting for
Reed Richards
to show up or something.
I think the Spectrum thing was big enough on its own right.
I agree, but that's not the lasting image people have of WandaVision.
Yeah, people are idiots. I shouldn't say that. People are more misogynistic than they believe that they are. Which is the problem.
They're right amount and like to pretend they're not. But
yeah, because you wouldn't say that if it was a creation of a male hero. Like that's the problem. It's like, Reed Richards was created through the quantum realm. That's freaking cool. Versus like, okay, but like we had the equal thing in another character that's equally cool and that is going to come into a movie. That's everything about that's exciting. Why is that? Why are people not talking about that? I think
we know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that
that's true.
We've said it multiple times. They need to stop trying to call their shot on like, oh, this episode, wait till you see that. Just put the episodes out and let people decide.
Yeah, but I mean they're good at generating that hype by doing shit like that. As much as I hate it, they're good at like getting us stirred up and talking about
it. I would argue though that anyone that cared about that tidbit of information was already going to be watching it.
I agree. I would agree. They're trying to make you more excited for it.
Preaching to the converted never really feels as interesting as.
But if you're trying to get the converted to share, retweet, or like,
but what I'm
do
saying
stuff
is,
like
if
that,
this is consistently the one that has the lowest viewership, are they actually good at creating the hype?
Is that a fact right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't
that last
they
episode
released
too.
I didn't know they released the numbers. I have weak goldfish memory now.
Yeah. No, I don't. So that's all I'm saying is it's not like this is like outperforming anything.
Right.
It's right. It's what I'm saying is they're preaching to the converted. So yeah, you can get us in a frenzy, but that doesn't translate to people watching more because they heard episode 5 of a 6 episode thing is cool.
Yeah, they'll probably watch more if they find out that Spider-Man is linked to Hawkeye in one way, shape, or form.
All put out, someone will advocate for them to watch it.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, that's what I mean by like, are they good at it? Because it's not like the number one show on Disney Plus.
No, it's not. What is the number one show on Disney Plus?
I don't know. I'm just saying it's got lower.
Is it the Will Smith National Geographic show?
I could see that doing better.
I want to watch that so bad. I think he'd be so cool. He's so genuinely excited about stuff all the time. Yeah,
well, that's that. That's the episode. We'll be back for episode 5.
We'll see if it is an actual game changer or if it's just
another episode
reskinned version of Uno. We'll see.
We'll see. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. We're part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, a whole bunch of shows. So please head on over there, thatshelf.com. You'll see our show, the shows I mentioned, more shows. And if you would like to hear older episodes of Spoiled Rotten, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @tdfspoiled. So please get in touch with us there. I'm sure people don't like what we have to say about the show. So please get in touch with us. Let us know what we're missing.
Yeah, rage
And-
at us. It'd be fun.
Please.
Actually,
And-
no, don't do that. Be respectful. Just be kind and be respectful. No, I shouldn't say be kind. Just be respectful.
Yeah, sure. And we're on all sorts of podcasts catchers. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, iHeartRadio. If we're not where you like to get your podcasts, again, let us know through email or Twitter. And if we are, then please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Goodbye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.